Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the breakfast news on Rajya Sabha television. Let's begin with this morning's headlines. Battle Royale at the World Cup. Reigning champions India take on former champions Australia, and they both will fight it out in the semi-final at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Government reaches out to the opposition on the land bill, says it is ready to accommodate changes even as it prepares action plan to reach out to farmers. Indian government raises almost 1.1 trillion rupees from the spectrum auction, prices up over twofold in some circles, raising fears that cost could be passed on to the consumers. Yemen's US-backed President Mansour Hadi flees the country as Houthi rebels advance south to take over the Aden airport. Saudi Arabia launches airstrikes on the Shiite rebels. And data from the first flight recorder of the crashed Germanwings plane fails to provide definitive clues. Search on for the second recorder. Well, in the second semi-final of the World Cup today, co-hosts Australia take on the defending champions India at their home turf in Sydney. The last time the two met in a knockout stage was at Ahmedabad in the 2011 World Cup, where the Indians beat the Aussies by 5 wickets. Here's the match preview.
Plays that shot well.
On tour down under since last November, MS Dhoni-led India failed to register a single win in a competitive game. The World Cup changed that all. The men in blue seem to have found the right mix after their 7-match winning streak in the ongoing tournament. Team India is clearly reaping benefits of the time spent in enemy territory. The batsmen know the length and bounce on the Australian wickets, while the bowlers also seem to have found the perfect rhythm to bamboozle the opposition. Only two teams have retained the World Cup title ever, West Indies in 1979 and Australia in 2003 and 2007. And if things go according to plan, history could be repeated at the cost of Australia.
You know, we're playing some different cricket now. So what has happened, we have left right there. We never wanted to carry into the World Cup. We always spoke about this. We know how important the World Cup is, and we have actually come out and played really well and played some good cricket. So we just want to continue, just a matter of 2 more hurdles.
Playing India in Sydney is about the stiffest challenge Australia could have been given as they seek to join New Zealand in the final. The match will be played on a pitch that should turn and grip, so India will give Australia a tougher examination that New Zealand or South Africa would have done at this stage. The Michael Clarke brigade relies heavily on their aggressive approach toward the game and knows the condition better than any opposition. The team has thrived on his pace attack led by Mitchell Starc and Mitchell Johnson, with adequate support from seeming all-rounders Shane Watson and James Faulkner. Part-time spinner Glenn Maxwell has also chipped in for Australia, who have left out their premier spinner Xavier Doherty after he went wicketless against Sri Lanka in the only game he has played in the tournament so far.
I think already you've seen the guys handle it really well throughout the tournament. The way the boys played in the quarter-final against Pakistan was extremely pleasing. Expectations there because we're the number 1 ranked one-day team in the world. The reason you have expectation on you is because you've performed.
Will it be Australia marching on to make it an all-host finals, or India finally register their long-awaited win against Clarke's men? No matter who wins tomorrow, the clash is expected to be an absolute cracker of a game and worthy prelude to the highly anticipated World Cup final on Sunday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this morning to talk about the match is senior sports journalist Jaideep Ghosh. Jaideep, good morning. Thank you for joining me. A very exciting day today, of course. One finalist is decided, but who's going to play New Zealand in Melbourne is the big question, really.
Yeah, I think the Indian public has generally forgotten that there's a final to be played. This seems to be the virtual final for all. It could well be, depending on how we perform here. But there's a major hype all over the place, and thousands have gone, and people have travelled from India just for this one match in Sydney. This is the big one according to everyone, and if we cross this one, then it seems that the final is the trophy is already in the pocket.
That's the general sentiment, and the Sydney cricket ground is going to be painted a sea of blue today, and that's a worrying factor as far as the Australians are concerned? Because Clark has already mentioned it, but how much of a factor is it really going to be when you go out there in the middle and start playing?
See, I think every cricket playing country in the world realizes that any big match involving India anywhere in the world will have a sea of blue, so it's not a new thing anymore for anyone. But yeah, of course, it makes a little bit of a difference that the crowd will be behind you. And the Indian boys are pretty used to this whole concept of, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people backing them. So it might be a little bit of a situation for Australia, yes, certainly, but I don't think a big team or a professional team is really too bothered about, the crowd and all. It's always what's inside in the ground. And the Australians are big time, give it as they get it kind of team. So they won't be bothered with the crowd.
So is there going to be a lot of chirping, a lot of banter in the middle, because the Australians have said expect a lot of it?
Yeah, I guess that's a very Australian way of doing things, because you generally have a situation where these guys are coming and starting off with the word play and stuff like that. They already started 2 days before the final, semi-final, that India will feel the pressure. That's an old tactic. I don't
mind
think.
Games.
Mind games. I think it's gone and done and dusted. I don't think it really affects anybody. But the Indian guys have to keep their cool. That is something. I mean, they've been instructed. I know for sure they've been told not to hold back. But not holding back doesn't mean going overboard.
Yes.
So I guess it has to be a mix of both.
As far as this match is concerned, what do you think are the keys really for India?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of talk about how Sydney is going to be a turning track. It is not going to be a turning track. I've got absolutely cast iron information that it's an absolute batting paradise. So anybody who bats first will definitely be scoring huge amount of runs. So obviously the toss is something that has to look at, and if you are batting first, obviously there's not much to do. You have to just go and get your runs. If you're bowling first, then your line and length has to be absolutely to the T, because any kind of length, variation in the length and direction is going to cost you very dear.
Is there going to be a change in strategy for this particular match from the Australians' perspective? Are they going to bring in Doherty maybe, or are they going to go ahead with the same team?
I seriously doubt if Doherty will be brought in, because if you look at the spin angle, India has way better bowlers than Australia. And I don't think Australia is going to experiment in a knockout in a semi-final, because Doherty is not going to be much of a threat anyway. Because they'd rather go with four fast bowlers and then use Maxwell and maybe Stephen Smith also if required. But the pitch is not going to turn that much. It's just going to be the fifth bowlers quota which will see the Australian spinners in action. Otherwise they'll go with the fast bowlers.
Is that fifth bowler that India needs to attack?
They need to attack all the bowlers, but yeah, the fifth bowler is something that you never know how many overs every bowler gets. For the fifth bowler's quota could be, you could use 4 bowlers each, somebody bowling 4, somebody bowling 3. So yeah, I guess anybody who's not a full-time bowler needs to be attacked. At the same time, bowlers like Maxwell and all, they tend to get wickets because of the pressure from the other side. So that is something that needs to be catered to.
Stark someone to watch out for the Indian batsmen, especially the top order. He's going to trouble Dhawan, isn't he?
He's going to trouble everybody, because Stark, if the ball is swinging a little bit, then Stark is as lethal as it gets right now, because he bowls at 150, near about 150, and he swings the ball both ways. And that is something that you will really have to cater to, because that Yorker is deadly, and if it falls in place, then the best batsman in the world will struggle.
Indeed. Rohit Sharma has been in great form when it comes to Australia. He loves scoring those big centuries against Australia. So do you think there's too much riding on maybe a couple of players from the Indian side, maybe Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, because batsmen at the top of the order need to score against Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think the whole that's the definition of the game, because see, if your openers go and create a big partnership, then automatically the pressure is more on the fielding side, as well as the fact that the pressure is taken off your batsman. But if you lose a couple in the top, maybe in the first 5-6 overs, then obviously you are not going to score as many runs, and then the pressure is back on the batsman coming in the middle order and the low middle to go and complete the 50 overs and create a score. So as a rule, the top players play at the top of the innings. First 3-4 batsmen are the ones who have to really go and deliver. That includes Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan, and of course Virat Kohli.
What do you think would be a good score on this wicket?
It's a little difficult to say unless you've really seen the wicket, but what I understand is that a 300 plus score is very much on the card.
India or Australia in the final?
I'm an Indian, I always say India.
Right. Of course, all Indians will definitely be rooting for India today, and it's going to be a cracker of the game. It's going to start in less than an hour's time, and everyone will be glued to their television sets back home in India to try and watch the entire match. Thank you so much, Jerry, for joining us on the program and putting things into perspective for us. It's time for a short break now. Coming up on the other side, former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh moves the Supreme Court against summons in the coal scam. That and much more. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Tradition dating back centuries. A cultural heritage that inspires and warms at once. Magic that awes. Rajya Sabha television brings you events that embrace the wonders of India's classical arts. Conversations with the biggest names in the culture and music. Rajya Sabha television, democracy at work.
In the Maths Factor, we travel through time and space and see how maths has evolved and how it is a part of the world around us. Join us on Rajya Sabha television. Watch the Maths Factor every Sunday at 8 a.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, the BJP-led NDA government has given the first indication that it may be willing to make compromises on amendments that the opposition is seeking in the land acquisition bill. The change in tactic comes just days after the budget session ended without the bill being passed. It could be because the RSS has cautioned the BJP on the groundswell of opposition it could face from farmers. The RSS has warned that going forward, the bill could even cost the party the upcoming elections in Bihar and other states. Here's more.
The government is willing to compromise on the contentious land acquisition bill, giving into opposition pressure. In the first indication of this, Parliamentary Affairs Minister M. Venkaiah Naidu reached out to the opposition saying that important legislations should not be used for political gains. He also said that the ordinance on the land bill was in the larger interest of the country.
हम बता रहे विपक्ष को कोई अच्छा सुझाव है और भी सुधारने के लिए है तो आप दीजिए और बिल को साथ दीजिए, इसको पारित करने में मदद करिए और किसानों के हित में हम मिलकर काम करें, ये हमारा विनती है विपक्ष से.
The party is clearly in a dilemma over the bill, and it is not just about having the numbers to get the bill passed in Rajya Sabha. The bigger problem is the amount of resistance to it that the opposition has managed to whip up among farmers.
कई लोग इकट्ठा हो गए, उन्होंने आप कहा कि ये तो किसानों के हित को नुकसान पहुंचाने वाला है, किसानों को जो है वो के लिए जो है वो विरोध में है. ये जो है इसको हम ध्वस्त करेंगे.
The BJP is asking its party leaders and workers to counter the opposition and clarify the issue to farmers and also convey that the bill is to their benefit.
जून 2014 में एक कॉन्फ्रेंस होती है, उसमें लगभग सभी राज्यों के प्रतिनिधि, मुख्यमंत्री वगैरह आते हैं और आने के बाद जो है वो सबकी एक बार एक आम सहमति बनती है कि साहब जो प्रेजेंट भूमि अधिग्रहण कानून है उसमें कई तरह की खामियां हैं, उसकी वजह से कई तरह का जो डेवलपमेंटल एक्टिविटी है वो उसमें रोक लग रही है.
Even though the government is not willing to yield without a fight, it also knows that the issue is an explosive one. Some of its allies are also against any amendments to the bill, while senior leaders have cautioned prudence in stepping back in the face of a majority public opinion.
BJP is fighting perception battle on the issue of land bill. Party feels if government goes ahead with this bill, party can be branded as anti-farmer and anti-poor. On the other hand, government feels going back on this bill will not be a good idea as it can dent strong image of Prime Minister Narendra Modi itself. With cameraman Arvind, this is Shyam Sundar, Rajya Sabha TV, Delhi.
Well, in a bid to revive utilization of stranded gas-based power generation, the government has decided to support DISCOMs from the Power System Development Fund or PSDF through a transparent reverse e-bidding process. The Union Cabinet in its meeting yesterday also approved the launch of the National Supercomputing Mission. Here's more.
लगभग 31 गैस बेस्ड पावर प्लांट्स बंद पड़े हैं या चालू नहीं हो पाए हैं। ऐसी परिस्थिति में आज एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय लिया गया है कि भारत सरकार की तरफ से पावर सिस्टम डेवलपमेंट फंड पीएसडीएफ उसके द्वारा सहायता एक रिवर्स बिडिंग प्रोसेस ई बिडिंग प्रोसेस द्वारा ऑफर की जाएगी गैस बेस्ड पावर प्लांट्स को।
Power Minister Piyush Goyal announced on Wednesday a major policy intervention to revive stranded gas-based power plants in the country. The CCEA approved the proposal to permit GAIL and GSPL to import gas on spot basis and supply it to these power plants. Under this arrangement, power developers will completely forego return on their equity. CCEA also approved the launch of National Supercomputing Mission.
We are going to install 73 supercomputers in different parts of the country, and all will be linked by a computer grid. ये लगभग 4,500 करोड़ की योजना है।
The Cabinet and CCEA also took other major decisions. New norms for central assistance to states under the Food Security Act, 101 additional inland waterways declared national waterways, formation of an SPV to provide efficient rail evacuation system to major ports, concept and institutional framework for Sagarmala project to promote port-led development, approach and key components of e-Kranti, which is one step forward in the Digital India program. The Cabinet also gave ex post facto approval to some changes in the Land Acquisition Bill, which was cleared by Lok Sabha in the first half of the budget session. Vishal Daya's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the fierce auction of telecom spectrum has concluded, raising the highest sum ever in the history of the country. The government has managed to raise a record over 1 trillion rupees. Incumbents Airtel, Idea and Vodafone bid aggressively to protect their businesses as new players like Reliance Jio joined the auction. The maximum bid at the 19-day auction of over 72,000 crore rupees was received for spectrum in the 900 MHz band. In two spectrum bands, prices jumped by over twofold in some circles. But the high numbers in auctioning has also raised fears of hike in call and data rates. Operators are likely to pass on the cost of this spectrum to consumers. In another move to connect with the public, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has launched a web portal for public grievances. The new portal facilitates interaction with the government secretaries and chief secretaries through video conferencing. The new portal is called Pragati. The interactive platform helps in addressing the common man's issues and reviewing of important programs and projects launched by state and central governments. This portal uniquely blends three latest technologies: digital data management, video conferencing and geospatial technology. Let's now bring you up to date with the other national news and updates in our segment Nationwide. Former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh moved the Supreme Court yesterday seeking to get the summons against him quashed in a coal block allocation scam case. Singh sought immediate stay on the order that has asked him to appear before the trial court on the 8th of April. The petition is likely to be mentioned for an urgent hearing before the court today. One crew member of the Indian Navy aircraft that crashed off the southwest coast of Goa has been rescued. The captain of the aircraft, Commander Nikhil Joshi, was spotted by a fisherman an hour after the crash and was admitted to a naval hospital. Sources involved with the rescue operation say pings are being received from a life jacket equipped with a locator beacon for the other missing officer. The Delhi Government Transport Department has requested the Information and Technology Ministry to block the web-based apps of three major taxi operators, Uber, Ola and Taxi for Sure, for not complying with a ban order imposed on them. All app-based cab services were banned in the national capital after a driver of Uber was accused of raping a female passenger. However, the cab services have been operating despite their license applications still pending. The CBI filed a closure report in a case against senior Congress leader Jagdish Titler in connection with the 1984 anti-Sikh riots. The filing of the closure report by the investigating agency has been protested by the Victims' Council. Titler was earlier given a clean chit from the CBI twice. Let's now bring you up to date with the news and events lined up for today in our segment The Day Ahead. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will chair the 5th meeting of the National Ganga River Basin Authority today. The Prime Minister is the ex-officio chairman of the authority, while Chief Ministers of Bihar, West Bengal, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh and Jharkhand are its members. The meeting comes at a time when the government has given a thrust on cleaning up the polluted river and is charting out plans for it. The Supreme Court will hear the matter in the spectrum auction case today. The top court had earlier allowed the government to go ahead with the spectrum auction subject to certain riders. The top court had said that the outcome of the Telecom spectrum auction will be subject to its final ruling. Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Mufti Mohammad Saeed will visit New Delhi to attend the meeting of the subgroup of state chief ministers constituted in the Niti Aayog to rationalize centrally sponsored schemes. The Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister would also attend a function where former Prime Minister of India Atal Bihari Vajpayee will be awarded the Bharat Ratna. The second day of the 5-day National Congress meet of the CPI will continue in Puducherry. On the first day, the party called for a broader left democratic unity, saying that the richest rightist takeover has presented them with the opportunity to expose such forces. The CPI meet is being held to discuss the present political and economic situation in the country and chalk out strategies for the future. Well, it's time for a short break now, but coming up on the program, the US launches fresh airstrikes on Islamic State strongholds in Iraq's Tikrit. That and other international news coming up. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
In the Maths Factor, we travel through time and space and see how maths has evolved and how it is a part of the world around us. Join us on Rajya Sabha television. Watch the Maths Factor every Sunday at 8 a.m.
Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira.
Barack Obama has been elected on the basis that I will no longer take America into wars, and in fact quite the opposite, I will pull America out of wars.
According to the Indian government, fishermen are not at fault.
The US intervention in Iraq set the stage for exacerbation of these conflicts, and then the intervention in Syria.
Watch World Panorama at these times on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back, you're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, Yemen looks headed towards a full-scale civil war as Houthi rebels took over the airport in Aden, the seat of power of US-backed President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi. Reports suggest that Hadi fled the country by boat yesterday. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia launched airstrikes on the Shiite rebels. Here's more.
Fighters loyal to Yemen's President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi are preparing to defend his Aden base as Houthi militia forces closed in on the south of the country. After taking over the Al Anad air base, the Houthis and their military allies have advanced to within 20 kilometers of Aden, where Hadi was holed up.
نحن أبناء الجنوب سنقاتل حتى آخر دم من حياتنا وسنصمد بوجه الأعداء المحتلين وسنضربهم بأيدينا وبالحجارة بكل شيء ما لدينا.
Following the Houthi onslaught, the country's US-backed President Mansour Hadi has fled the country. The state television network, which is now under the rebels' control, announced a $100,000 bounty for Hadi's capture. The worsening violence in Yemen's south could also turn into a wider regional conflict. Saudi Arabia and its Persian Gulf allies launched airstrikes on Houthi militia forces in face of the escalating violence.
I wanted to meet with you to inform you that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia launched military operations in Yemen. The objective is to defend the legitimate government of President Hadi from the takeover attempts by the Houthi militias in Yemen.
The Saudi-led operation is an extraordinary development that could plunge Yemen into full-out war. The airstrikes are targeting Houthi-held sites around the country, including in Yemen's capital, Sana'a. Saudi Arabia has said the operation will continue until President Hadi was returned to office. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, there has been a significant headway in the investigation into the Germanwings aircraft crash that happened on Tuesday. Investigators say that they have extracted usable data from the cockpit voice recorder recovered from the crash site yesterday. No definitive clues as to what transpired in the final moments could be ascertained, but a detailed investigation is likely to reveal more. They added that the plane seems to have hit the ground at great speed, suggesting no explosion in flight. Lufthansa officials say more information could be retrieved if the search teams find the second flight data recorder. Flight 4U9525 from Barcelona to Dusseldorf crashed after an 8-minute rapid descent into the French Alps on Tuesday.
We're very glad that the first flight recorder has been retrieved yesterday, and the French authority confirmed just a few hours ago that one of the audio streams is readable. So we expect, hopefully over the next days, more information, and we of course hope that the rescue teams will very soon find the second flight data recorder as well, which will then provide us with a complete picture of the accident.
Let's now bring you up to date with the other stories from around the world in our wrap. The United States military has confirmed the launch of fresh airstrikes against Islamic State militants in the Iraqi city of Tikrit. The order followed a request from Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi for assistance. The US believes that the strikes would minimize collateral damage to infrastructure. Iraqi forces also resumed their ground offensive on Wednesday and targeted IS positions. At least 7 people were killed while 36 others were injured in a suicide car bombing in Kabul yesterday. The blast occurred in the Murad Khani area near the Afghan Presidential Palace and Defense Ministry. The blast damaged nearby buildings and shops as well as 12 passing vehicles. The attack was the deadliest in 4 months. 1 person was killed and 3 others injured when a blast ripped through a Turkish magazine's office yesterday. The victim has been identified as one of the writers of the magazine. Investigators did not immediately discover the cause of the explosion but are focusing on the possibility of it being an attack on the offices of the Adimlar magazine. Adimlar is published by sympathizers of the Islamist militant group. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif arrived in Lausanne yesterday to resume nuclear talks with the US Secretary of State John Kerry. Zarif stated that the talks were at a crucial stage as the deadline for the agreement approached. He also added that he and other Iranian negotiators will do their best in the new round of nuclear talks due to begin in Switzerland. Well, that's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a nice day.